Okay, just a quick video about the pinch grip and its use in drums. So when we want to do a buzz or a double stroke, a bounce double, we employ this pinched grip. And so when we hold a stick normally, we have a little gap here usually, which is called the open grip, and this helps the stick bounce up when we want a more traditional drum sound, like a short sound. And for matched grip it's the same. If you employ traditional grip with the hand under the stick, then it's basically loose. As you can see, loose-ish. And we try and get the stick to bounce off. So now when I'm going to focus on this hand, because I know that a lot of us don't play traditional grip much anyway, and it is slightly different, so I'm going to focus on the matched grip first. So basically then, if you have a looseness here, it's a little bit like a mouth, and if you close that mouth, bringing the thumb up and the first finger down to create a tighter feel, what happens is we drop off the three fingers at the back. We don't need them, and we just try and get them out of the way of the back of the stick, because they'll soak up all those vibrations we need to develop. And then we end up tightening the first finger, so it just goes under the stick a bit more, like pulling around a little bit more, and we end up with that. So then we push in with the thumb, and we push under the stick with the tip of the first finger. So we end up with a ring of pressure. You can imagine, what I like to imagine, a ring, like a steel band going around the fulcrum. And that creates tightness at the tip of the stick. So you should be able to feel that with the other stick. Okay? So once you've got that, and I stress, it shouldn't hurt. So if it's hurting, you're squeezing too much. Plus, bear in mind, if you haven't done this before, you will feel maybe a twinge on a muscle here, which is the muscle we would use to clench something. So if you feel a twinge, that's probably normal. But if obviously develops into pain, then obviously you're doing something wrong. So the main thing I think of is just tightening the first finger underneath the stick, and then we end up with this tension, the stiffness at the other end. And then when we play the drum, we also try and promote this idea of letting the stick not coming up by using the weight of your arm and hand. So all that energy that we would normally get a bounce from goes into creating this scraping effect, which is made up of lots of multiple bounces. It's like a jarring, really. All that energy is going into the buzz. You can have a loose one or a tight one. So within the kind of area of buzzes, we can have as a loose buzz. You can see the grip will loosen a little bit. About a millimetre gap now between the thumb and first finger. Or we can tighten it up, have no gap here, so it's nice and tight, to create a more frothy buzz. On the other hand, it's really about the fulcrum tightness. So when we're loose here at the base of the thumb and the first finger, the stick of course will bounce up. And we just need to squeeze it together, again clenching the stick with the thumb pressing down and the very base of the first finger pressing up a little bit. And the two fingers here just sort of for stability and stopping the stick going sideways, which we'll do otherwise, like that. Just put them on and put the two underneath to keep it in an up and down plane. As you want to get more tightness on this hand, you can use your first finger to press down more. That's how you get the frothy buzz with the traditional grip. So frothy buzz, very tight, and you loosen a bit. That really first finger thing there, the tip there is the key. So if you want a frothy buzz, it's very tight on the stick. You see that alright? If it's loose, you get a slightly looser buzz. So this tight grip we call the closed grip. So you've got to think of a mouth. You have a closed mouth for a closed stroke, and you have an open mouth for an open stroke. Sock puppets, so you've got open mouth, are closed, and you can really see that in action if I do a closed stroke, a few closed, and then a few open. If you do open and then closed, you can see that mouth is opening and then closing. So it's kind of like open, close, and it's really about the first finger tightening. So the thumb tends to stay more the same. So with the open grip, the first finger loosens, and with a closed grip, it tightens around underneath the stick, creating that kind of mouth effect. Anyway, so yeah, so if we want to loosen the buzz, then we have a nice exercise which can develop a bounce double stroke. So if you're playing a tight buzz, and then you loosen a little bit, you loosen the mouth, and also give us slightly more energy in the stroke by bouncing it from a higher height and with more energy. You can get multiple bounces. We can actually, with practice, you know, probably get 6 or 7. 7. 7, and then once you get used to that, just develop with practicing, you know, how many you can get. So if you go for 4, and then 3, and then 2. If you've ever studied molar technique, then, or any kind of bounce technique on the drum, obviously you will be aware of how that feels. When you do 4s, not just about the grip here, it's also about how much energy you give the stroke. It's a little bit like fishing or playing any sport that uses a bat, so there's an element of feel which you can't really put into words. You'll feel it and you can see it when it's right. And then the 3s, so it actually can work really well if you just copy the motion. So I'll just do a few 4s. The 3s, I'm not using any fingers here apart from the first finger, of course, and the thumb. That's the closed grip. And then 2s. So with the 2s, we're getting one stroke and then one bounce, and then a pickup, stroke, bounce, pickup. Pickup tends to, for me, work best if. This is where it gets complicated, but for a one-off bounce double, where you're not looping it, you can pick it up after the stick is bouncing up, so you basically get stroke, bounce, and then you pick up after. If you want to get to a more of a bouncy, looped effect, you can actually pick it up on the second note, which would be on the bounce up, and then you get a looped version of this movement. Like a looped bounce double, but for most snare drumming we don't tend to do that too much. That would be more for a beat application. So for a roll, we tend to just do one-off movements. By that I mean we do one on this hand, and then one on this hand will be followed by one on the opposite hand, so we don't loop one hand round and round. Anyway, on the traditional grip, again, it's a development of the first grip. So if you have a buzz, you're squeezing quite hard, first finger pressing down, and thumb, base of thumb pressing, and we loosen that a little bit. So again, you can go through the procedure of getting lots of, first go for lots of bounces, as many as you can. Which for me is a little bit like throwing the stones on the sea and it's skipping along the sea, so you throw it away. You throw the stroke away. It's very loose. You just got enough pressure here to keep the stick from going sideways. So that's the key, really. Throw it away. Let's say if you want 4 then. 3. It really just depends when you pick it up. As if you want 4, you let it do 4, then you pick it up. You've got to give it slightly more energy, whipping it slightly harder. And if you want 3, you just give it slightly less energy. Whoops. Then pick up after 3. As I said before, it's bit of a feel thing as well, so the more you do it, the easier it gets, and you'll kind of feel when it's right. And that bit is hard to put into words, but you can copy maybe by watching. And then 2 is the stroke, the bounce, and the pickup. By the way, if we go back to the stroke bounce sort of terminology, if we go back to the one where we're playing many bounces, that would be a stroke and multiple bounces. We're doing many bounces. So here's our stroke, and then listen for the bounces. Again, think of that ball, you know, like any ball, football, tennis ball, basketball on the floor. Throw it away, it's going to bounce a lot. Over the side of the desk is another useful analogy, I think. Anyway, moving on, then you've got, okay, well, if I want to do three drum strokes, I've got to do an initial stroke and then 3 bounces. If I want to do, sorry, if I want to do four hits, yeah, I'm going to do 1 stroke and 3 bounces. And I pick up, so stroke, 3 bounces, and then pick up. 3 hits, I do 1 stroke and 2 bounces and then a pickup. If I want to do 2 hits, I do 1 stroke, 1 bounce and then a pickup. So, and again, the pickup, you could do it after the movement, or if you do it at the same time as the second movement, you get a loop. Okay, moving on. So then if you want to do a 5-stroke roll, they're always named after how many hits would be in the double stroke version of the roll. So that would mean if I do 3 movements and I do the first movement as a double, second movement as a double, and then the third movement as a single, if I added that up, that would be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a 5-stroke roll. Now, this is where it gets a bit complicated. If you remember what I said, that a 5-stroke roll has 3 movements. 1, 2, 3. So we can do a closed roll version of those by doing 3 movements. Those movements would be a buzz, and a stroke. So the way you can look at it is like this. If you do a double stroke version, you're doing double stroke. If you're doing a buzz version, you're going buzz stroke. But both versions have 3 movements, 3 primary movements. Okay, so here's a 5-stroke roll played as a double stroke, 3 movements, 1, 2, 3. And here's a 5-stroke roll played as a buzz or closed 5-stroke roll, again having 3 movements. And those movements were 1, 2, 3, buzz stroke. So we have a 5-stroke played open as doubles, and then you have a 5-stroke played closed as buzzes. Now when you get it up to speed, it feels almost exactly the same. There's very little change in your hands. The only change is in the tightness of your fulcrum, and so it should be quite effortless. Well, up to points. So you shouldn't be straining anything, and if anything's hurting, you're obviously doing something wrong. So having said that, getting to that point where this is effortless, it takes a lot of practice, particularly on your fulcrum pressure. So it's all about fulcrum pressure. So if you're tight, you get the buzz. Slightly looser, you get the double. And it can take a while, a long while, to really master that. It's quite intricate, really, but practice, of course, makes perfect. Okay, so there you go. So anyway, there are many stroke rolls as well, so that there's a huge vocabulary of drum rolls which goes back about 300 years to the 1700s. So if you are interested in developing this, I would get a poster or book with all the drum rudiments in, and there's many stroke rolls. The 5-stroke is the shortest one. And then you can develop your rolls, and yeah, it's really good fun. Okay,